Here are 9 examples of basic equations showing properties of addition and multiplication in action. Let's go through each equation and identify the property of real numbers being shown. Here's a table showing the properties we're looking for if you need to review. These are the names of the properties, and here's how they apply to addition and multiplication. There is, of course, also the distributive property, which concerns both addition and multiplication at once. Since the property of closure just says adding two real numbers gives you a real number, and multiplying two real numbers gives you a real number, you could say that any of these equations are examples of closure, so we're not really going to talk about that one for the rest of this video. But knowing what all these other properties are, let's take a look at these equations and try to identify the property. In number 1, we see that 2 plus 5 in parentheses plus 1 is equal to 2 plus 5 plus 1 in parentheses. We can easily verify this is true. The left side is 8, and the right side is also 8. In this equation, we see that how we choose to group the terms in an addition problem does not change the result. This is called the associative property of addition. It doesn't matter how we associate the numbers being added together, we'll get the same answer. And you can see that property written out in the table there. Moving on to the second equation, this says 4 times 5 equals 5 times 4. This is showing that the order in which two numbers are multiplied doesn't change the answer, and that's called the commutative property of multiplication, which we see in the table here. The commutative property says that the order of multiplication does not matter. All right, moving on to the third equation. This says that 8 times 1 over 8 is equal to 1. This is showing us that if we take a number and multiply it by its reciprocal, we get the number 1. And this is called the inverse property of multiplication. Any number not equal to 0 has a corresponding inverse that if we multiply it by, will produce 1. And we see that in the table here. The inverse property of multiplication tells us for any number not equal to 0, we can multiply that number by what's called its reciprocal to get 1. The next equation says that 3 times 8 plus 4 is equal to 3 times 8 plus 3 times 4. It's easy to see that this equation involves both addition and multiplication, so this must be the distributive property. It tells us how multiplication distributes across addition. To do 3 times 8 plus 4, we must distribute the 3 to the 8 and distribute the 3 to the 4. That's the distributive property, which we see in the bottom of the table. Next is equation 5, which says 4 times 1 times 5 is equal to 4 times 1 times 5. This should look a lot like number 1 to you. It's saying no matter how we group the numbers in a multiplication problem, no matter how we associate them, it doesn't change the answer. So this is the associative property of multiplication. Equation 6 says that 0 plus 7 equals 7. This is saying if we add 0 to something, it doesn't change it. We add 0 to 7, we get 7. That's the identity property of addition. If you add 0 to any number, the number doesn't change. In equation 7, we see that 2 plus 3 equals 3 plus 2. This says the order of addition doesn't matter. We can swap the 2 and the 3. Either way, we're going to get 5. This should look a lot like number 2 up here, where we saw the order of multiplication doesn't matter. So, no surprise, this is the commutative property of addition. Equation 8 says that 9 plus negative 9 equals 0. This is actually a lot like equation number 3. This says for any number, like 9, we can add this other number, called its negative, so negative 9, so that when we add them together, we get 0. This is called the inverse property of addition. Every number has an inverse, or what we more often call an opposite, which when added to the number produces 0. 9 plus negative 9 is 0. 2 plus negative 2 is 0. 8 plus negative 8 is 0, and so on. Finally, equation 9 says that 5 times 1 equals 5. This says if we multiply any number by 1, it's not going to change that number. number. So this is the identity property of multiplication. You could take any number you like and multiply it by 1. The number will not be changed. There's one more look at all of the equations and the properties they illustrate, and one more look at the table of properties of addition and multiplication. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and be sure to check out my Algebra 2 course and Algebra 2 exercises playlists in the description for more. Thanks for watching.
Stressed out, sweetie, I'm stressed out. Sounds like you've been stressed out. Tell me what you're stressed about. Stressed out, honey, I've been stressed out lately. Don't know what's what, don't know what I'm stressed about. Stressed out, sweetie, I'm stressed out. Sounds like you've been stressed out. Tell me what you're stressed about.